of Creed. That guy's an egomaniac. He's a fucking punk. And he's backstage right now, acting like he's fucking Michael Jackson. Fuck that motherfucker. And fuck you too.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, UFC 294 has come and gone, and before I get into just a quick recap, this video won't be very long, of the last three fights on the card. In the process of making this video, news broke out last night, overnight in fact, about the Jon Jones Stipe Miocic fight falling through, which is not actually funny, but it's like, is it really surprising at this point after the bit of a train wreck that was UFC 294 being kind of cobblestoned back together after Oliveira had to drop out from an injury and Paulo Costa having to drop out from an injury. So, and then of course now Jon Jones is having to drop out of his highly anticipated fight against Stipe Miocic for the undisputed heavyweight title. So touch on that in just a second. But first, the 294 results. So honestly, this card was really fucking weird to me.
That was fucking weird, huh? Holy shit. What the hell was that all about?
Outside of the last three fights, there weren't a whole lot of fights I was, really chomping at the bit to check out. Let's just start with Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. I wasn't really sure who was going to win this fight. Like, truthfully, I don't feel that either fighter is particularly great. I know, like, Johnny Walker is one of those fighters that has showed a lot of potential, and he was very hyped up when he first got into the UFC. But feels like he's only sort of partially delivered on some of those expectations, right? He's looked really good and flashy at times. I know his style was more chaotic at the beginning, and that was helping him win fights. But it also started being some of the cause, at least some people believe, why he was losing fights along the way as well. But he worked himself into a position against Magomed Ankalaev, who, if you recall, had the what was supposed to be a title fight with Jan Blachowicz. Was it that last year? I'll double check that. And that fight ended up being such a snooze fest that Dana White just said, fuck it, neither one of these assholes deserve the belt.
That was fucking weird, huh?
So, Walker finds himself in a fight with Magomed Ankalaev, and in a strange, like, just as weird as it was to have two last-minute replacements for the main and co-main event, it just seems like it was inevitable that some weird fuckery was going to happen on the card as well. So, of course, it taking place over in Abu Dhabi. Walker was in a down position, got kneed, shook it off. Should have been given X amount of time by the doctors or the refs to, to shake that off, since it wasn't a legal blow. And just weirdness ensued, right? Like, they're in a different country, obvious language barriers. It's not like English is Johnny Walker's first language anyway, although he does seem to speak it, pretty well. Doctor supposedly asked him where he's at. Walker claims it's really hard to hear. There's a lot of crazy shit going on in that moment, and his response is like, I'm in the desert, which really isn't incorrect. It's not like he was like, oh, I'm fucking the Florida Keys or something. Like, he was like, no, I'm in the desert. Didn't want to give like the wrong answer and potentially had the fight waved off, but the answer he provided was not what the ref or doctor, whatever, was looking for. He waves the fight off. And there was a split second where I was like, oh shit, Johnny Walker's about to get kicked out of the UFC. As I watched him, I think he shoved the ref, which there's no excuse for it. Like, as a combat athlete, like, you just can't do that. Same reason why, like, if you're in the NFL, you even just sneeze on a fucking ref, like, they're gonna kick your ass out. Maybe out of the NFL entirely. Like, they don't play that shit. And honestly, I feel like there should be some sort of fine or something levied against Johnny Walker, because it just, it's a bad look, right? I think it sends a bad message that it, even though I don't think that he was in the wrong in terms of his response, like I feel like everything played out against Johnny Walker in this just really crazy way that no one saw coming, including him. Obviously, it's still not okay to put your hands on an official or a doctor or anyone like that. Like, they're not the fighter, right? So I feel like there should be some sort of fine levied against them, just so we don't encourage other fighters to do the same. But that was ruled no contest. A lot of people, including myself, really feel that should have been a DQ win for Johnny Walker. I mean, you're telling me that in a championship main event, you know, like, Aljamain Sterling gets kneed, can't continue, and is given the belt. And in this fight, which is, you know, many were seeing as a title eliminator, you know, Walker gets kneed, actually can continue, and the fight still gets waved off, and then it's ruled a fucking draw, a no contest. I keep saying draw, but it's ruled a no contest. Like, I don't know. I just don't think that it played out the way that it should have. So, on to the co-main event, Kamaru Usman versus Khamzat Chimaev. If you saw my other video, then you'll know that I was picking Chimaev to win this fight, hoping that Kamaru would. Not that I've got anything against either fighter necessarily. Yeah, I think it's easy for a lot of people to kind of root against Khamzat at this point, because he kind of left a lot of people with a sour taste in their mouth after the Diaz weight miss, and, you know, went from being this kind of beloved up-and-comer, and then all of a sudden everyone turned on him. And to be fair, he's not like my favorite person, but I was, you know, like a lot of people, was kind of hoping to see Kamaru come back and be able to win. And I'm like, man, if anyone can do it, I know Kamaru normally would if he were healthy, if his knees were great. But that, to me and to a lot of people, was the big question. It's like, are his knees healthy enough to where he can wrestle? And is he going to be able to, you know, wrestle so like a Khamzat Chimaev, which is known for just really fast start, really quick on his feet, and getting to those grappling positions and just manhandling people. And for the first round, it really looked like Kamaru was about to get finished. I was really surprised that he made it out of that first round. I thought for sure Khamzat was going to choke him out, man. Or get a doctor stoppage or something. There was a few times where Kamaru was getting hit, and I'm like, dude, if you don't put your hands up or fucking do something, the ref's just going to wave this off. That didn't happen. The fight went the distance. And then, you know, like Kamaru and team, Trevor Whitman, were kind of kicking themselves going, fuck, we were offered a 5-round fight. Khamzat seemed like he gassed out a little bit after the first. I mean, the second, and especially by the time the third round's rolling around, like, Usman was looking like he was primed and ready to start taking the fight over. But that didn't, you know, the judges gave it to Khamzat, and after such a dominant round, it's not surprising why. It's just almost one of those deals where it's, you know, I think it would have been better for Usman to have the 5-round fight. I mean, when you really think about it, when was the last time he fought in a 3-round fight anyway? I don't have the stats in front of me, nor am I going to look them up, but fight goes to Khamzat, like I figured it would. So, moving to the main event, Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. Of course, Volkanovski being a last-minute replacement for Charles Oliveira, who got hurt right before supposedly he was going to board a plane, which is just, again, another crazy turn of events. Well, I think people were kind of split. Just my impression, all of this is just my take and impression, right? I felt like it was kind of evenly divided. Like, half the people were like, Volk's going to go in there and do it, because a lot of people, including myself, felt that he won the first fight. Whether or not that's actually true, it was kind of like, well, if he had Islam in that position that he had them at the end of the 5th round in the first fight, like, he can just pick up where he left off. You know, that's the thought. I just didn't think that was going to happen. Like, I felt I was leaning a little in that direction until I found out that he had that surgery after his last fight over the summer. And given that he wasn't planning on fighting until January anyway, I'm like, man, you know, I don't know, dude. My initial impression was like, oh, fuck, that's not good, right? And then when I heard him speaking in the media the days leading up to the fight, it was just a lot of like, hey, I'm coming off the couch, the pressure's not on me, it's all on Islam, like he better do, and I'm just kind of, and then like, hey, we're not even trying to test the cardio, let's go out there and get a finish. And I'm like, dude, you didn't get the finish in the first fight. It didn't, for me, he didn't seem very confident going into this fight that he was going to win it. Like, we all know that he can, and I'm sure he knows that he can, or like he's got that potential. But I just didn't think it was going to happen. And a lot of people I heard saying like, hey, Islam's going to knock him out in the first round. And I was like, I don't know about that now. That seems a little crazy. But sure enough, that's what happened. So fair play to Islam Makhachev. It really sucks for Volk and for Volk fans because, I feel like things would have to play out in a extraordinary way for him to be able to get another crack at least at Islam as a belt holder. So for right now, it just seems like Volk's going to go back down to 145, try to defend his belt in January after the turn of the year. And that, for now, seems to be the end of his chances at trying to get the 155 belt. So that is my thought on UFC 294. Not the best card. I mean, like, those last 3 fights were cool, and I really wish that the no contest didn't happen with the Walker fight, because I was really looking forward to see how that played out, because love him or hate him, Johnny Walker is entertaining and does bring like this entertainment factor to the light heavyweight division, which I think has been lacking, honestly, since Jones left. So, but not my favorite card. I'm going with like a 4 out of 10 on that. I just wasn't. I mean, outside of the potential for that fight to have been as good as it was, I don't think that the main and co-main event, or really almost any of the other fights that I saw, would have been worth buying that. So, moving on to Jon Jones, like I was alluding to earlier. News broke overnight that Jon Jones is out of UFC 295 next month in November versus Stipe Miocic. I found that out this morning, and like, I don't know. I mean, of course I'm surprised, but like I said, is it really surprising after like UFC 294 just kind of felt like a cursed card with everything falling apart and them having to like hold it back together with fucking bubble gum and paper clips and hopes and dreams. So, like, yeah, of course, like, UFC 295 is now, like, fuck too. And it wouldn't surprise me if something happened in fucking December with Covington Edwards either. Like, I hope to God not, and maybe now that I've put that in the atmosphere, it's going to happen. But I've always been a big Jon Jones fan. He's the whole reason why I got into watching MMA and took up doing jiu-jitsu and going to MMA classes and learning to box and just I remember watching Jon Jones in 2011. That was the first time ever really like seeing him when I first got into MMA, and was just like a lot of people in awe of how he was just dismantling people and the ease of which he made his fights look, and how much, like, knowing he was going against people that were either former champions or up and coming champions or whatever, he just took everyone out with this like ruthlessness in the cage. So super bummed to hear that Jones is out of 295. Apparently there was footage that came out, I'll put that up, that shows him he was wrestling or going for a takedown, goes to shoot on, I guess from the footage, it's our left, his right, when he shoots for this takedown, and kind of stops as he's in the middle of it, just grabbing his arm. The guy, his sparring partner, stops, and the footage kind of cuts out. But this news broke last night, and with Dana White actually sharing it and letting us know that Sergey Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall is now going to be taking place in that card instead of Stipe versus Jones, and that will be for the interim interim heavyweight championship title. So that will be interesting. A lot of speculation. I'm not going to spend 20 minutes on this because there's a lot of other channels I'm sure that are going to break that down. But that's the news. So Jon Jones, Stipe is out. Pavlovich versus Aspinall for the interim heavyweight championship, and presumably you know, they're going to look to try to rebook Jones versus Stipe for next year. I will say it's I get it on Stipe's part, because, you know, he's looking at this going like, dude, I've been training for Jon Jones. I'm not about to like step in and fight. I'm sure it doesn't want to necessarily fight either one of these dudes, especially on short notice. And I'm sure that Jones wouldn't do it either. I mean, like, he didn't take that fight against Sonnen immediately, right? So, it's just, man, I feel like the difference is when Jones didn't take his fight, he was already the champion, had prepared for a completely different opponent, and was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. Like, we'll fucking do this next time. If you're Stipe, though, I mean, Stipe Miocic is how old now? Let me look this up when I'm thinking about it. Stipe Miocic is getting up there, right? So, according to Wikipedia, actually no, according to his own website, he was born 1982. So he is like 41 years old right now. That sounds old, bro. Google is telling me that he's 41 years old. I don't know why I was thinking he was like 39 or something. I knew that he was approaching 40, but I didn't realize that he was already 41 years old. So, yeah, I mean, so if you're Stipe Miocic, you're 41 years old, man. Like, you're coming off of what? When was his last fight? Was when he got knocked out to Francis Ngannou. And then before that, he won the fight in his trilogy rematch against Cormier. But before that, had been also knocked out by Cormier, right? Or something like that. Yeah. Either way, like, when you look, if you're Stipe, man, you've been knocked out twice in a short number of fights. Now, granted, he's been away for a couple years now, so he's got that going for him in terms of that. That's like the one thing I keep hearing people say is like, well, he's been away for a couple years, you know, he's got that time to like heal up and rest up. And I'm just like, man, you know, Jones like walked away after. Now, whether or not you felt he won that last fight against Reyes or not, doesn't change the fact that he walked away like from the belt. He was the champ and was like, dude, you know, I'm gonna make a move to heavyweight. Like, I beat all the people when I was coming up. I beat all my contemporaries, and then I beat the people that were coming up after me. There's nothing left for me to do. Stipe kind of got like his ass beat in 2 of his last 3 fights, or 4, or whatever it was, and now he's 41 years old. And I'm like, man, if you're Stipe, like, how long do you really want to fucking sit on the sidelines? To what? When next year he'll be 42, fighting. It said what? His birthday is August, so he just turned 41. If Jones is out for 8 months, like they're saying he is, that puts him in what, June, July, sometime next year. I mean, like, Stipe would be pushing 42 if they're able to make this fight next year. It gets to a point where I feel like if you're Stipe, you kind of have to take the replacement fight, right? I mean, you don't have to, but you kind of need to. You haven't fought in a number of years. Now you let another year go by. There's another year that you're getting older, and so is Jon, but Jon's also technically a bit younger than him, and he hasn't been knocked out, not once, but twice. So all in all, I just think it's a bad move on Stipe's part, honestly, not to take the fight. I get it, because if he doesn't do well, then that's kind of, how do you justify ever getting another run at the title? But there comes a point where it's like, dude, look how long Stipe had just sat out at this point. I don't know. I just think that he should have taken the fight. It would have been, if he takes that fight, goes out and wins it, now he's the interim champ, and you've got the interim versus the current champ and Jon Jones coming back. And like, that fight easily sells itself. Not that it didn't in the first place, but it would put even more like oomph behind it. So Jon Jones is out, and I guess we'll just, you know, there will be many videos, I'm sure, in between now and then with what he decides to do. Like, honestly, I would not be terribly surprised if Jones, at the end of this, decided to just retire. Like, I know he wants to fight Stipe, but there does come a certain point where you're like, is it worth it to go out and risk it against a 42-year-old Stipe Miocic, who is like, you know, he's not going to do shit if he wins the belt other than retire? And if you're Jon Jones, you're like, dude, I'm just coming off the surgery. I'm not getting older either. Like, now I'm starting to get injured. Like, what's the point? I can just say that I'm the fucking greatest because everyone believes that anyway, and just retire. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all. So if you've got any suggestions, like, don't be afraid to to drop a comment, a suggestion if there's something that you want to see. Like, I'm happy to talk about it. So thanks again for tuning in. Basement MMA.